On deadline day, the only move the Marlins made was trading Jesus Sanchez to the Astros. They kept everybody else.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I've been a diehard Marlins fan since I was 12 years old, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can find me on X at Jeremiah Geiger 2. And thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Don't forget to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. The trade deadline has come and gone. That's all she wrote. And on deadline day, the only move the Marlins made was trading Jesus Sanchez to the Houston Astros. Everybody else they kept, including Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera. I'm a little bit surprised at how this deadline went. If you've been watching the show for the last week, you've heard me talk about potential Sandy Alcantara trades, Edward Cabrera trades, and they didn't. And I love it. This team is not trading Sandy and Cabrera for pennies on the dollar. They're not going to sell low on them. They held their ground. And now I look ahead to 2026. And, I'm getting ahead of myself here. The rest of 2025, the Marlins are 7 games out of a wild card. You never know what can happen. And you have Sandy, who's pitched back-to-back outings without giving up a run, or an earned run, rather. You have Edward Cabrera, who's been awesome. You move Jesus Sanchez. I'm going to talk about the return in a little bit. Jacob Marcy's Major League ready. You don't trade any of the bullpen pieces. This team essentially is going to be the same the rest of the season as they have been the last month and a half, where they've been the hottest team in baseball. The odds are low, and I get that. But when you have a chance to go for it, and, as Marlins fans, we've only seen 2 playoff appearances since 2020 or 2003, then you never know. And I'm going to be very vocal of this. Keeping Sandy and keeping Cabrera is a statement to the fan base, and it's also a statement that we're not going to just trade to trade. I hate that concept. Trading away guys just to trade them. We've talked about the value of Sandy Alcantara and how it might have been diminished because of his struggles this season. And that if they were going to trade him, I wanted to see a huge haul in return. Same with Edward Cabrera, who has 3 years remaining on his contract. He has 3 more years of team control. And they're keeping them. So why not? See what happens the rest of the way. You play the games for a reason. Baseball isn't played on paper. I'm pleasantly surprised that Cabrera and Alcantara are both staying. If you would have asked me this morning, I would have told you that one of them at least is going to go. That's what I assumed. I just thought it was going to be a foregone conclusion that there was going to be a trade involved with the Marlins and one of their ace pitchers. But they're staying in Miami. We do, though, have to say goodbye to Jesus Sanchez. Jesus Sanchez was the longest tenured Marlins position player. He was acquired from Tampa Bay before 2020, I believe in 2019, the trade deadline of 2019. And he's been a Marlin for a while. He's provided a lot of great memories for the Marlins fans. But it was time for him and the Marlins to part ways. That felt inevitable heading into deadline day. It was just a matter of time. And sure enough, he gets moved to the Houston Astros for a pretty decent return, all things considered. The Marlins get right-handed pitcher Ryan Gusto, who's in the major leagues right now, and then minor leaguers Chase Jaworski, who's an infielder, and outfielder Esmil Valencia. So Ryan Gusto this season, 24 games, 14 starts. He has an ERA of 4.92. His FIP, though, is lower at 4.11. 86 innings, 87 strikeouts. What I like is the four-seam fastball. He throws it almost half the time. He has a lot of different pitches, but really relies on that four-seamer. It has good life, 18.2 inches of induced vertical break on average, and opponents are hitting just 210 against the pitch. So he's got a solid four-seamer, and he has a lot of other pitches, including, a slider, a cutter, a sinker. Daniel Moscas, Bill Hazel, the Marlins pitching development staff, they're going to get him in the building and get to work with Ryan Gusto. In the meantime, you have a hole in your outfield that I expect to be filled very quickly by Jacob Marcy, who's clearly major league ready. So in my opinion, this was a very good trade for the Marlins. Again, Jesus Sanchez leaving is bittersweet. I'm always going to root for Sanchez. I think he's a really funny guy who just loves playing the game and loves having fun. And now he's in Houston. He's going to a contender. I'm by no means an Astros fan, but I'm going to be rooting for Jesus Sanchez anytime he's at the plate. And he's going back to Miami. So on Monday, the Astros are coming to Lone Depot Park for a series against the Fish. And we'll get to see Jesus Sanchez in his old stomping grounds again. Coming up next, though, I'm going to talk about what the Marlins didn't do. They didn't trade any relievers, and they failed to move Cal Quantrill. I'm going to discuss that right after this. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I remember a while back, I went with my brother to the driving range, and it was frustrating because I am not a good golfer by any means. Every single time I'd swing, the ball would veer off to the right. That's where I need that 5-hour energy just to stay focused and not get so frustrated. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and can't be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or you're trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. I appreciate all the everyday listeners making this part of your daily routine, and we're talking the trade deadline. It was a quiet deadline for the Fish, and they didn't move some players that I thought they would, and that's what I'm going to discuss in this segment. First one being Cal Quantrill. Quantrill is on an expiring contract. He almost certainly, it felt like he was going to be moved, especially the way he's been pitching recently. He had a last-minute cameo yesterday against the Cardinals in which he pitched 5 shutout innings. Last 7 starts for him, he's got an ERA of 3.15. And it felt like as a cheap rental, there would be a pitching-needy team that took a chance on him. In the month of July, he had an ERA under 3, 2.92 across 5 starts, 24 2/3 innings, 21 strikeouts. Very efficient month of July for Cal Quantrill, but he stays a Marlin. And it doesn't really make sense to me. What I can think of that probably happened was that the Marlins were trying to move Quantrill. I don't think they just sat back on their heels and didn't take any calls or didn't approach other teams with potential offers. I just think it didn't get done. I mean, I was refreshing Twitter all day long for any rumors for all the teams. I mean, you had nonstop rumors here, rumors there, speculation, trades coming at you left and right. I kept waiting for ones with the Marlins, mainly for Sandy and Eddie, because those were the biggest trade chips. But also, I heard nothing about Cal Quantrill. I know the Red Sox were trying to get Joe Ryan. They settled at the last minute to get Dustin May from the Dodgers. So I just think the Marlins didn't get something done. It's a little bit of a head scratcher because of how well Quantrill has pitched recently, and being a rental on a cheap deal, it felt like the Marlins could have accepted any deal and it would have been a win. But the front offices, they couldn't get something done. The other aspect of the deadline that I'm surprised by is that the Marlins didn't trade any relief pitching. So yesterday, we saw how the relief market was shaping up. Tyler Rogers from the Giants goes to the Mets for 3 players, including 2 of the Mets prospects, Blake Tidwell and Drew Gilbert. It looked like a clear overpay by New York. And that's when I said, I mean, this market is a seller's market, number one, and number two, especially for relief pitching. And so Anthony Bender and Ronnie Enriquez were definitely on the table in my mind for any potential deals. Bender in particular, I assumed Bender would be traded. I did not expect Bender to be here after 6 p.m. Eastern time. And he is. Ronnie Enriquez, he has much more control than Bender, and there wasn't pressure to trade him. It's different than last season, in which the Marlins had Tanner Scott on an expiring deal, and he was the premium rental of the deadline for relief pitchers. They moved him at the last minute. They did not move any other arms. Nobody. Not one arm in particular. Was there a big target for a relief pitcher on the Marlins like last year? Probably not. Enriquez, I mean, he was leading the National League in strikeouts for relievers. I thought possibly he could have been moved. I thought Bender for sure would have been moved. And then you go back down the list, you have Lake Bacher, you have Calvin Fauché, kind of not mediocre, but lesser commodities for other teams. So I don't know, again, what the thought process with the Marlins was with keeping all of the relievers. I certainly would have tried to get something done there. They got something done with Jesus Sanchez and Nick Fortes. That was it. Sandy and Edward Cabrera stay. And I'm so happy Sandy Alcantara is still a Marlin. And Edward Cabrera. I said this on the show earlier. I wanted Edward Cabrera to stay a Marlin more than I wanted Sandy Alcantara. If they were going to trade one or the other, I wanted them to trade Sandy. It still would have hurt. I still want them to go out and be smart and get the best possible deal. And I'm trusting Bendix that at this point in time, there was no offer that he could have justified moving either Cabrera or Sandy for. And if you're a Marlins fan, you should be happy with that. You don't sell low. I like to think that he looked at the Jesus Luzardo situation from a year ago and did not want the same fiasco to happen, where you wait too long to trade somebody. When you do trade them, it's not worth it. And that's what, with Sandy Alcantara, it's almost a reverse situation where you kept Sandy after the injury, let him prove himself, but the issue was the performance didn't back anything up. And the value was tainted, it diminished. And although Sandy pitched well the last couple of games, I don't think it was enough around Major League Baseball to warrant the Marlins trading him. The Red Sox, the Yankees, they weren't going to pay top dollar for Sandy Alcantara. And Peter Bendick said, okay, then you're not getting Sandy. It's as simple as that. And with Edward Cabrera, there's lots of rumors about the Cubs. Yesterday, the Cubs got Mike Soroka from the Nationals, and that felt like a fallback plan if they couldn't get a premium starter. The Cubs have a really nice farm system. The Cubs didn't want to pay top dollar for Cabrera or Sandy. I said Owen Casey, Jackson Wiggins. You give us those two prospects, then we might have a scenario in which we can get something done. And it looks like the Cubs were unwilling to do that. Because at the end of the day, Cabrera's a Marlin and Sandy's a Marlin. And what that means for the rest of the season is that you have a rotation spearheaded by Yuri Perez, Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera. None of them are gone. They're all here. And hopefully for 2026, you get a potential call-up in Robbie Snelling. You see what Ryan Gusto has. I mean, let's go. Let's go. This team, they're 7 games back of the wild card. They're 3 games under 500. The teams ahead of them include the Padres, who currently hold the final spot, and the Padres went crazy this trade deadline, literally trading everybody in their farm system, it felt like. You have the Reds, you have the Cardinals, who you just won a series against. You have the Giants, who weren't buyers, they were soft sellers. I described them as kind of like the Marlins, almost the same record. They're right there neck and neck. Is it likely? No. But who cares? This is baseball. Go out and see what happens. Coming up next, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts on the 2025 deadline, take a look around the league, and then for the Marlins, wrap up my thoughts on the Marlins, give you a letter grade of how they did this deadline, and talk about what to expect as the season continues rolling post-deadline. That's coming up right after this. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and discuss in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts on how the deadline went. It was a surprising trade deadline for the Marlins. I expected them to be much more active than they were, but I'm not necessarily disappointed by it. I think the Marlins' letter grade for this deadline was a solid B. And I'm not going to give them an A because I would have wanted them to move Quantrill and at least 1 or 2 relievers, because I think relievers are expendable. But I think it's solid because you did well in the Jesus Sanchez trade, and you also kept Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera. They're not going anywhere. Your rotation is still intact. You didn't break everything apart, and potentially you have the horses to make a run. Now, people are going to say, well, if they're going to make a run, well, then shouldn't they have been buyers? No. You're not going to go out and necessarily buy when you're under 500. But what you can do is soft sell, believe in the core that you have, believe in the players and how they're playing over the last month and a half when the Marlins have one of the best records, if not the best record in all of baseball, and stay the course. And that's what they're doing. They made one move. I look at it as a lateral move. Sanchez leaves, Marcy comes up. Nick Fortes leaves. You have two catchers already, Liam Hicks and Agustin Ramirez. Joe Mack is still in AAA. So what the Marlins did, they just didn't break it apart. They believe in what they have on the field enough, and they don't want to sell low on their players. That's really what it comes down to. I will admit, it's a head scratcher that not one reliever was traded. I don't know why they couldn't move Quantrill. Maybe we get some more clarity on that in the future. But as of right now, if you're a Marlins fan, buckle up. The trade deadline's over. No more speculation. Sandy Alcantara is here for right now. Maybe he gets moved in the offseason. It doesn't matter. That's not what we're focused on right now. We're focused on playing baseball. Edward Cabrera, 3 years of control. You didn't have to move him. People will say, well, they had to move Cabrera. His value is at its highest. You know what that tells me? They believe in Edward Cabrera, and they're in no rush to move him because the turnaround's real. This breakout year, it's not pixie dust. It's not going to fly away. It's here to stay. And he's pitching like an ace. And I can't help but think, looking ahead to 2026, if you keep Sandy Alcantara and Cabrera, and of course the offseason, the winter meetings, that's going to be a whole nother ordeal, then you have a three-headed monster. Around the deadline, I wanted to talk about the Padres for a second. I know this is a Marlins podcast, but I would be remiss if I wrap this up without discussing how much of a madman AJ Preller is, the general manager for the Padres. He disintegrated the farm system, trading for Mason Miller, Ramon Laureano, JP Sears in the Mason Miller trade. Their top prospect, who was viewed as untouchable among many people, Leo DeVries, traded to the A's for a closer, Mason Miller. He's going all out. He's going all out to win the World Series this year. And if you're the Padres, you got to. You don't really have a choice. It's World Series or bust with the amount of talent you gave up. Those are buyers. That's the team the Marlins are chasing, by the way, for that final wild card spot. The Padres were buyers. The Marlins were not. The Marlins were never going to sell off all their prospects, and I don't think they were ever going to do a complete teardown as well. They did that last year. You got players back in the deals you made last year. Kyle Stowers, Agustin Ramirez, and those players are contributing now every day for the Marlins. You've surpassed expectations. Now you're at 52 and 55. You're 7 games out of the wild card. So it doesn't make sense to go out and buy, but it does make sense to hold and to not break something apart. They didn't go out and rip everything to shreds again, because that's what the feeling would have been if Cabrera and Sanchez and Sandy and Enriquez all got traded. That's a full sale right there. Especially with Cabrera. Cabrera has 3 more years of control. I don't know why people keep saying trade Cabrera now. Do you believe in him or do you not? Is he injury prone? He has been, but he's been healthy for the most part this season. And don't you think that Peter Bendix and the Marlins front office knows this already? Don't you think that if they truly believed Cabrera is fool's gold, that they would have moved him or been more aggressive in potentially moving him this deadline, but they didn't. I want to read this from Craig Mish, who tweeted this out right when the trade deadline was ending. He said, pulled it up here. I had the wrong tweet pulled up. But he was talking about how the Marlins aren't trading anybody else. And I like what he said. Marlins are holding everyone else. They are the hottest team in baseball and 7 games back of the wild card. They have decided to give it a go and see if they can stay in the race. Yankees in town this weekend, and expectation is all 3 games will be close to or sold out. It's a huge series for the Marlins because postseason baseball is awesome. And when you still have your core after the deadline and you don't have major holes in your rotation like the Marlins don't have now, they didn't trade Sandy or Eddie, then I can envision this team going on a run. Who's to say they can't? I like what Peter Bendix has done. I would have moved the reliever. I would have moved Quantrill. But now that I'm sitting here and thinking about it, maybe the reason they kept Quantrill was they view him as valuable for what they're trying to do. And they're trying to win now. Sure, they didn't go out and buy. They're not going to break apart the farm. But you never know what can happen. Wouldn't it be awesome if this team continues playing hot and sneaks into the playoffs? Wouldn't that be crazy? How awesome would that be? I'd be ecstatic. And I'm going to be watching every single game as if the Marlins are trying to get into the playoffs, which they are. Don't tell me that the players don't believe. Don't tell me that clubhouse doesn't believe they can make a run and they have what it takes. Because I don't care what anybody else says. As long as the games are being played and you got 3 bases and home plate, 4 balls is a walk, 3 strikes, you're out, then anything can happen. You didn't sell low. You held your ground. You moved 2 players in the last week. I would never have expected this to be the case with the Marlins team that was projected to sell at the deadline. It feels different to me. It feels like there's a true sense of belief now in the players that they have and that this team is closer than people think they are, that Marlins fans think they are. Nobody would have expected this when the Marlins lost 100 games a year ago. That they're going to come into the trade deadline, hold their ground, not sell on Alcantara, because coming into the season, you want to know the biggest storyline of the Marlins? It wasn't Kyle Stowers, it wasn't Agustin Ramirez. It was, what will the Marlins get back for Alcantara? I'll tell you what they got back. They got back Sandy Alcantara because he's a Marlin. He's a franchise pitcher, he's an ace, and he's staying in Miami. El Caballo. Cabrera, he's been here a long time. He's struggled. He's shown flashes of potential, and he's put it all together, and I love watching him pitch, and I'm going to continue to enjoy each and every start that he has. Yuri Perez, Sandy, Cabrera, that's nasty. That's a real good trio of pitchers right there. Cal Quantrill with an ERA under 3. Don't sleep on Quantrill now. Maybe there's a reason the Marlins didn't move him. I'm just saying. Jesus Sanchez, I wish nothing but the best for. There's so many pictures out there of Sanchez just doing hilarious things and being goofy. He's a funny guy. All in all, guys, a surprising deadline, but I'm going to walk away from it excited for what's next this season. Got the Yankees coming to town. Shock the world. Till next time, guys, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go.